Hi there, I'm Smith Kingston, houseplant guru extraordinaire. Joining us today, we have the elusive Shadow Mantis, the phenomenal Pop DubDubeda, the strikingly attractive Lady Space Cowgirl, and, as always, Yabonton Melon. Now, in most of my videos, I only ever feature one fern at a time. I could never feature two ferns for obvious reasons. Listen, ferns are so jealous, and let's be real, who needs that kind of drama, especially when the camera's rolling? Today though, we have three, so we'll see how it goes. I'm comfortable with cautious optimism, but let's be real, shit could still go down. Okay people, this video is all about, you guessed it, no, ferns. Now, while I specialize in succulents, I have been known to dabble here and there in the subtle and intricate science known to many as fern care. There are a lot of different species of ferns that can be kept as houseplants, but this video focuses on one species specifically, and that is the Boston Fern, or Nephrolepis exaltata. Listen, fern care can be tricky, but understanding several simple secrets, each of which can be found nestled cozily into a certain part of this video, will make you a fern care extraordinaire. So stay in your chair, learn if you dare, like, subscribe, share. Yeah, do that too. You know, I do need to get a new chair. This one might not be the loudest chair known to man, but it's definitely like in the top 5 for sure. Knowing what you're doing when it comes to fern care begins with understanding the conditions to which Boston ferns evolved to survive in the wild. The Boston fern is native to warm, humid, tropical environments in places like Mexico, Central America, South America, the West Indies, Polynesia, Africa, and Florida. In these places, they grow underneath larger trees and are shaded during the hottest parts of the day when the sunlight is at its most extreme, receiving only filtered or indirect sunlight during these hours and only ever experiencing full sun early and or late in the day when the sun is near the horizon and the vast majority of its ultraviolet radiation is being filtered by the Earth's atmosphere. Understanding this is critical when deciding where in the house to keep your fern. Indoors, this type of sunlight is most likely to be found near an east or west facing window or in a north facing window. Areas near south facing windows can be safe during winter time when the sun is low in the sky and its light is less extreme, but try to avoid more than an hour of direct sunlight in a south or west facing window, even in winter time. Real quick, out of respect for the 6 of you who are watching this from New Zealand, please understand that as far as directional orientation is concerned, all these instructions apply only to those living north of the equator. Please don't scorch your ferns by subjecting them to hours of direct sunlight in a north-facing window. If you want to keep your fern outside, that's cool too, but again, try to avoid any direct sunlight during the middle of the day. Look for areas with high levels of filtered or indirect sunlight. If your fern is looking pale or bleached in color, and the edges of some of the leaves are getting a little bit brown and crispy, that's a sign that your fern may be getting a little bit too much sun. When keeping ferns outside, it's also important to be mindful of cold temperatures because your fern will die if it freezes. Yeah, Todd was a good fern. let's talk about soil and pot sizes. When you bring home your new fronded friend from a nursery swap meet or farmer's market, you'll probably want to get it out of its nursery pot and into something a little more comfortable right away. When repotting ferns, I always recommend going up in size. Try to ensure that your new container is big enough that you can fit at least an inch of new soil all the way around the root ball. Also, make sure that your new container is equipped with a drainage hole. Don't be too worried if your fern seems dwarfed by the size of its new container, because it should catch up in no time, especially if you potted it toward the beginning of the growing season. When it comes to choosing a soil type, I recommend any high quality version of regular potting mix and not cactus mix or anything too quick draining. What you want is a mixture that will hang on to some moisture, but not so much that it actually suffocates the root system. The frequency with which you water your Boston fern will depend on a lot of factors, such as plant size, pot type, plant size to pot size ratio, and environmental factors as well. Personally, I water the ferns I keep outside during the summertime as frequently as every day during the weeks in which it is windy and hot out, and at least every third day otherwise. In the winter, when my Boston ferns are being kept indoors, I water them at least once a week, and in the fall and springtime, I'll water them probably every 3 days on average. This is kind of a guideline that you can use if you truly have no idea where to begin, but basically your end goal when watering your ferns should be to keep the root ball moist but not soggy, and never letting it dry out completely as you might the roots of a succulent. Propagating ferns is very easy and lots of fun. It's best to propagate ferns in springtime or early in summer near the beginning of their growing season. Luckily for these ferns, this video is being filmed in Arizona during November, but that video is coming. It's just gonna have to wait a couple months. One way to propagate ferns is to divide the root ball by making vertical slices with a very sharp serrated kitchen knife, as if you're cutting up some leafy, grainy, root-bound, very fibrous, and slightly poisonous pie. Okay, so as if you're cutting up some leafy, root-bound, grainy, very fibrous, non-toxic kind of a pie. Oh my gosh. You can cut it as many times as you want. Personally, I would recommend only cutting it into halves or fourths, and sixths at the very most. And then only if you have a very large and very healthy plant that has completely filled a large container. I've heard other experienced plant care aficionados recommend eighths. Personally, I think that's crazy, but hey, do what you want. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. Also, to avoid root rot during this type of propagation, I recommend giving your fern's roots at least a couple days to dry out before cutting up the root ball, and then waiting at least another day to water it after repotting your fresh cut slice of fern pie into its new home. This may sound counterintuitive, but the fresh cut edges of the roots will be extra sensitive to moisture, and propagating them under drier conditions will give the fresh cut edges of the roots a little extra time to scab over and shield themselves against excess rot-inducing moisture. Another way to propagate ferns is to wait for them to propagate themselves. This is a little bit more of a patient process, but it is so much fun. Most ferns recently brought home from a nursery will only have the fronds extending from the pot. But if you keep your fern alive for several months, you'll soon begin to notice other things extending from the pot. These skinny green fuzzy leafless tendrils are called runners or stolons. In the wild, ferns send out these stolons like skinny little fuzzy green scouts to search for an ideal spot to lay down roots and eventually sprout a sweet little brand new baby fern. Some people, like Derek, trim off the stolons and allow only the fronds to extend from the pot. You can do that too if you want to be lame, but The true houseplant guru extraordinaire will instead seize the opportunity by giving these stolons exactly the conditions for which they are searching. One last thing. Because ferns are native to warm, humid, tropical environments, there are a lot of fern keepers out there who, with this in mind, spend an untold and astronomically large number of precious hours of their lives spritzing their ferns with water, hoping to recreate the humid conditions in which ferns have evolved to survive. Let's be real, people. If you live somewhere arid enough to justify even wanting to go down this road, then the water you spritz onto your ferns is probably going to evaporate in a matter of minutes before it gets the chance to make even a marginal difference. I don't know, maybe you have other motivation for spritzing your ferns. Maybe you're the super of an apartment complex in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you have reason to believe that your drug dealer / murderer neighbor is up to something. And spending hours in the halls spritzing your ferns by hand day after day is your way of keeping an eye on things. Listen, I live in the high desert of northeastern Arizona. It is very dry here and it is very windy. What you saw just now was the first and last time I will ever waste a second of life spritzing a fern. Shadow Mantis is 4 years old. Pop DubDubeda is 2.5 years old. Lady Space Cowgirl is 3 years old. They all beautiful, and until today, they never been spritzed. Myth busted. Hey, listen. Do you like bad graffiti, worse jokes, wacky macrame, and pretty good advice about how to take care of your houseplants? Well then f***ing subscribe. That's right, turn on channel notifications too, so you never miss a new video.